Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and we may have some pretty substantial leaks for Pokemon Winds and Waves. It's been a little while since we've heard something pretty significant about this game, but with this latest information, well, it's looking pretty significant, and so that's what we're getting into today. Before diving into it all, let me just point out I'm getting so close to my goal of 60,000 subscribers. Hopefully we get there soon, so if you find yourself enjoying my videos and you haven't subscribed already, I would very much appreciate your subscription. So we have Central Leaks reporting on a lot of this information. They're pulling in info from different leakers such as Kurwashi Bamaste, Billy, and there's some very interesting things that are being said here. So the big thing that a lot of people are going to be covering here is the amount of Pokemon that apparently will be added to this game. What we're hearing, and this is coming from multiple sources here, the games will have the highest amount of new Pokemon ever added in a Pokemon game. The number that's being thrown around is around 300 new Pokemon / forms, which is a staggering number when you really think about it, because usually we come to expect somewhere between 70 to 100 per generation. I remember back for Pokemon Black and White, they had a whole collection. I think it was closer to 150 for that particular generation, which is very cool. Like, for most of the game, you were just interacting with all the new Pokemon. So to hear this number being thrown around, that is substantial. Especially considering we've already seen a trailer where they're including a whole bunch of Pokemon we've already seen. So it doesn't look like it's going to be the case where we'll be starting Pokemon Winds and Waves, and it's only going to be Pokemon we've never seen before. It would be a mix. And I think that actually has even bigger implications here for just how big this world is, because they showed us multiple shots with a lot of familiar Pokemon, yet there are about 300 new Pokemon here, including forms. That is a staggering number to include, and if they were not able to hide that all, then I think, yeah, that suggests this is going to be a very big game. Now, something else to consider here, and I think this factors into it, typically, the gap between Pokemon generations has been 3 years. From the sounds of things, it could be closer to 5 years at this point. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet came out in November 2022. Here we are halfway through 2026. It's not coming out this year, it's coming out sometime next year, so it's going to be over 4 years. And there have been some different leaks suggesting that Pokemon Winds and Waves might not even be coming out until later into the year. I'm not sure about that, but that's what we're looking at here. A gap of time is going to be more like 4.5 to 5 years as opposed to 3, so it's a longer development time. And this is going to be exclusive for Nintendo Switch 2, so they're certainly going bigger here, more ambitious. And yet, even with that in mind, this number of 300 or so sounds staggering. So I do find myself a little bit skeptical. I wonder if maybe once everything's said and done, it's not actually that much, but maybe they have that many ideas. And so perhaps many will be cut by the time the game actually comes out, but still, that seems like a significant amount. How much would they even cut? Would they cut half? Would they cut 33% or something? Even then, that will be a lot of new Pokemon forms, even if we're talking about just a fraction here. And yet, there's more that's been said. The new battle mechanic will introduce special weather forms for some Pokemon, and we've kind of talked about this before from some rumors, but this seems to be a little bit more clarified now. And it's being said to think of it kind of like Mega Evolutions or Gigantamax, like the equivalent, so there'll be special weather forms, which may factor into this amount of new Pokemon here. So that may actually be ballooning the number quite a bit, pun intended there, considering we're talking about weather, because it may be the case that they'll be taking some Pokemon and just making some minor changes when they go into this special form. Like we look at terrestrialization and they add these big crystals on top of the Pokemon's heads, you could consider that a new form, but I don't think a lot of us really think of it in that way, and so that could be ballooning this number significantly. And yet even then, if we're talking about seeing 100 new Pokemon, not accounting for new forms, then that's still a staggering increase in comparison to prior generations. Kura actually elaborated a little bit more about the amount of Pokemon though. To elaborate, as he says here, the Dex in the most current build has 531 slots, with 307 of them being placeholders and thus new Pokemon species here. So this clarification is suggestive that there is a ridiculous amount of Pokemon they're going to be adding, and that's just kind of crazy to think about that they would really go this far. I still wonder if there would be some cuts, but still, if they are considering this many, it's just kind of mind-boggling. Now, something else that Central Leaks said that I find interesting. Here they posted, "We are upgrading the credibility on this rumor. After multiple sources have now come forward supporting the claim, We think the leak about the number of Pokemon is very likely real, in all caps. It's happening. Around 300 new Pokemon are planned. I think again that's probably including a lot of these new weather forms, but still staggering number here. But there's actually even more interesting information that's being shared. This is coming from Billy. It's been described as an MMO light, a lot of focus on communication features. And what I find interesting about this, I remember with Pokemon X and Y, they had a little bit of some communication features that you could have going on with local play. And then in recent generations, you've at least been able to explore the game with your friends alongside you, especially with Scarlet and Violet most of the game. So they may be expanding upon that more so, especially considering now that we have game chat, that level of communication cooperation throughout the adventure may feel a lot more meaningful now. It's being said that the structure will be similar to Scarlet and Violet, where there will be 3 main stories. I actually think Scarlet and Violet, even though the game may have had a lot of issues, the structure of the game, in terms of what they were going for, was actually very smart. I liked how there were 3 different campaigns, and that ultimately led to a 4th campaign, or a 4th kind of linear story at the end. I thought it was a very good flow, a very good way to handle an open world environment. And so seeing them do that again, hopefully with even better execution and more fleshed out ideas, that would be wonderful. An idea for this generation, though, is apparently that it's going to be the most personable yet. And there's going to be a focus on having new Pokemon and being able to feel closer to them, so perhaps there's going to be more ways to interact with these Pokemon. It's also mentioned that while the game scope may have reduced a lot since the initial pitch, it's still very ambitious. And I think this is kind of the case for most games. There are so many different ideas that are going into a game that they want to try, but as they dive deeper into development, they realize what's more realistic, what they should actually prioritize to make sure the game actually gets out there in working form in a reasonable amount of time, even though this game in particular has been taking a lot longer than other Pokemon games. But as we've discussed in the past, this extra time is a good thing. I think many fans will agree that they've been having too quick of a turnaround here. It has been impacting the quality, so seeing them take significantly more time is a breath of fresh air. And it seems like, based off what we're hearing so far, it's going to pay off. But here are some more specific details that are being shared out that might be true. Keep in mind, none of this is confirmed yet. Salandit will get a regional evolution, Poison Dragon. Lieutenant Surge's son will be in the game and has his dad's Raichu. I wonder if this will somehow tie into that showing of those 2 different Pikachus that almost look like Pikachu's parents or something, like they were on vacation. I wonder if it's related in some way. Voice acting was planned for the game, but could have been cut as it's not been present in current builds anymore. That is concerning to me. I feel like with the last few generations, they've certainly been designing a lot of the actual cutscenes, like the way they've been animated, to have voice acting, yet it's never been there. It's been jarring and weird. We are in 2026 now. This is coming out in 2027. This is supposed to be a very big, ambitious game. I would think that voice acting should at least be there for the cutscenes. I'm not asking for voice acting across the board like a Bethesda game. I'm just saying for the cutscenes. Pokemon has the money. I think it would certainly be beneficial here. I think a lot of people would really appreciate it. It would be worth the investment. And so if they don't do this again, I'm gonna be underwhelmed, at least in this category. It would be a huge missed opportunity. So fingers crossed that whatever plan there was, it's actually going to be the case once the game actually comes out next year. Now, it's also being said that online play, these MMO-like features, will be the biggest technical leap for Generation 10. I already mentioned earlier how I think there could be some significant game chat integration here that could make for a big difference. And just a random idea, I don't think they'll do this, but you know, it's possible. You look at what they did with Star Fox, how they had the AR features with the different Star Fox characters when you have a camera. What if they do a little bit of that in Pokemon as well? That would be fun. I don't know if they'll do it, but it would be fun. Like they could pick certain Pokemon to match your facial expressions if you decide to go on camera during game chat. There are Pokemon that have placeholder special weather forms. Arcanine, Lucario, Kecleon, Pikachu, and 7 new Gen 10 Pokemon. This does not guarantee that these are going to be all the Pokemon with the new weather form. Some of them may be canned or changed around, so do keep that in mind. This is not final. But I'll say I think it's at least interesting that there's also going to be new Pokemon that will also have special weather forms. Because me thinking about it, looking at Pokemon X and Y when they introduced Mega Evolutions, I can't remember any of the new Pokemon getting Mega Evolutions, but older Pokemon getting Mega Evolutions. Although I imagine this is going to function a little bit differently. If I had to guess, it's going to be a little bit more like terrestrialization, but special terrestrializations that have more to do with weather effects, as opposed to Mega Evolution, but we'll see. My main point here is that I don't think the designs are going to be entirely changed. There's just going to be some adjustments. It's also being said that a lot of the development team has already moved on to working on the DLC, which is codenamed Zeus. And also, the main reason why the game was delayed to 2027 was just to make sure they had the time needed to actually finish the game, because this is a very ambitious game in comparison to prior Pokemon games. And so that's very exciting. I mean, we can kind of tell that from the trailer itself. It looks impressive for Pokemon standards. I'm actually very excited for this jump here. And this trailer, I mean, considering what we're hearing about when this game is going to be coming out, is pretty early on. So once we see the final product, it stands to reason that there's going to be some significant leaps here, some significant updates to the actual final version of the engine. And just me thinking about how there's supposed to be all these different Pokemon here, more new species and forms included than any other prior generation by a significant margin, and we haven't seen any of that yet. To me, that's indicative that they've barely shown us anything, even from that trailer, which is more than just a basic teaser. So that's very interesting to me. We could be looking at a huge, expansive, significant leap for Pokemon, and yeah. The main point here is that it's very exciting. But what do you all think? What do you make of all this latest information regarding Pokemon Winds and Waves? Let me know in the comments below. This is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I will see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.